Hello and welcome to Positive Fandom Sunday Brunch, guys. It's always a pleasure to see you guys here in the morning for Sunday Brunch. And of course, it's Mmmm here from Positive Fandom. And we have with us today, as usual, Russ Whitfield. Russ, how are you this morning?
Top of the world, thank you so much. Yeah, doing really, really well. Can't complain. Got a meeting with a producer in South Africa next week, which I'm very excited about, to talk about this karate movie that I've been working on. And it's a real, I've not been able to meet with this guy just yet, just because, he's very important and I'm very not. But they want some changes in this particular screenplay. So I said to our producer, look, can you set up a meeting with this guy? Because what I don't want to do is guess, spend weeks writing something, and then he goes, no, that's not what I meant. So we've managed to nail that down. So hopefully I can get the answers I need and get the final draft of this thing out the door. It's been a long road, and hopefully they'll make the film. Fingers crossed.
Well, that is so exciting, Russ. We love to hear things like this. As you know, we support creators here. You are a big time creator with your books, with your screenplays, and I'm sure you've done a bunch of other things as well. It's so exciting to hear such good news. We are all keeping our fingers crossed for you. I'm just praying that this is going to work the way you want. It's such great news. So congratulations on that. And I also want to say good morning to Tom Jr. Jackson. My collaborator and moderator. We are all good people. Good morning to you, Tom.
The man, the legend.
The legend for sure. Mario Lopez is here.
Hello, Mario.
Good morning. Good afternoon, Mario. It's so nice to see you this morning. And Retro Nerd Girl is here. Hello.
Oh, there she is.
How are you, Retro Nerd Girl? Always a pleasure to see you. She says it's been a while, but I'm ready for Sunday brunch. Well, we are too, and it's not the same without you, Retro Nerd Girl. So we are glad that you are here. Welcome as always. Certainly, we also have, I'm looking for her, Thalia Meyer is here. I know
Yes, hello.
Yes, I can't find her exact link, but if Tom saw it, then she's here. I know I saw that. Good morning to you, Thalia. Hope you are well. Bye for the Hobbit says, love you, well, I love you too, Bye for. It's so nice to see
he's only human, isn't he?
Yeah.
We all love you.
That's so sweet of you. Certainly feeling the love this morning, Russ. And Darth Plato is here this morning.
Oh, yeah. Hello, Darth Plato. So Darth Plato sent me an email. He put himself through the ringer and read my first book and kindly, purchased it and read it and all that kind of thing. And in the email, he asked me a question: would I, if I had my time over again, would I change a certain scene? So I wanted to say there's a lot I would change in that first book. I thought, I cringe when I read it, Darth Plato. I'm like, oh God, I shouldn't have gone there. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. And not particularly proud of the first one. The second one, the third one, very proud of. But the first one, I would have done. God, I wish you can't. Well, I guess you can if you're famous, but you can't go back and redo it. But I think if I had my time over again, I would rework a lot of that novel. So thank you so much for picking it up, and thank you so much for corresponding with me about it. And I hope you got through it and at least enjoyed some of it. And if you want to, do check out the second or third one, because they're much better, I think.
Guys, everybody, please check out Russ's Gladiatrix series of books. You can find all that information on russwhitfield.com. And of course, Russ, you can change it when they make your novels into the movie versions or television program. So there is the opportunity for that, Russ. So you never know. I have a feeling that's something that might happen, guys. So guys, do check out Tom Jr. Jackson's channel. He has his own YouTube channel, Tom Jr. Jackson, for movie reviews and more. Subscribe to his channel. I promise you will enjoy it, guys. We also have with us this morning, I am Micah, says hello. And I know that that's a particular football team. Can you read it, Russ?
Because he's done a Vulcan signal, but I can't actually see it.
Yes, it is. It is. Oh, yes. Live long and prosper, Mika. I always put my hand in the wrong direction.
Mhm.
Certainly there. So nice to see you. Oh, and there's Thalia's comments. Yes. Hi, Thalia. So nice to see you in the morning. And guys, remember, you can always donate to the channel using Stream Elements. If you look in the bio, you'll see a link for that if you want to give a donation to the channel. And we appreciate everything you do. Dennis Mason is here.
Hello, Den.
Along with John Ware Jr. says, good luck on your film. Is it live action or animated?
It's live action. There's an animated thing that I was asked to work on, and that's sort of like in the background, because with this karate movie thing, what happened was they went to they pitched it to like a casting agency, one of the big ones in Hollywood, and it turned out that the guy that they pitched it to really likes the idea and really wants to sort of fill it with this particular agency's actors and directors and things like that. So the animated project went onto the back burner. This is a live action tournament movie, you know, where you're forced to fight in an underground arena and, you know, all of that Jean-Claude
I
Van
can't
Damme good
wait to
stuff.
I can't wait to talk more about this, Russ, because we have a lot to talk about that. And of course, we are going to be talking, or at least touching a little bit on Scott Adkins, who
The legend.
also
I want to
is,
be him when I grow up.
yes, one of the most amazing action stars ever. And his new film coming out, Accident Man 2. But certainly, guys, do check out Russ's books, everybody. I have a feeling they will be made into live action. So certainly do check them out. Darth Plato can tell you he enjoyed them. Certainly an amazing foray into historical fiction, everybody. Hello, Joe Tyson says good morning.
All right, Joe.
And Russ, so good to see you. And Keely Chow. Keely
There
Chow is
she
here.
is.
Roll Tide, Keely Chow. What's going on? Well, it's Sunday brunch, Keely Chow. That's what's going on. Another wonderful Sunday, everybody. Efren Guzman is here. Hello, Efren. How are you today?
Hey, man.
And who else do we have here? My computer's so slow, guys. I'm sorry. Joker Voice. Joker Voice is here. Good morning, Positive Fandom and Russ. Hail, chat. Well, hail to you, Joker Voice. Always good to see you. And we also have Norwegian Kryptonian. Hello,
Oh, there he
Norwegian
is.
Kryptonian. So good to see you, Norwegian Kryptonian. Always a pleasure in the morning. And I think I did say hello to Dennis Mason, but just in case I missed that, hello again. Guys, it's so great to see all of you. We also have Cool Gamer. Cool Gamer is here. So nice to see you, Cool Gamer. Always great to see people we recognize here. You've been here before, and it's wonderful to see you again. And guys, don't forget on Monday, that's tomorrow, at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, on the Post Geek Singularity, I have my show on the PGS called Ladies of the PGS. Special guest host is Lorena Creole, and where we talk about science fiction, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, and sex, and more. So please do check it out, guys. So Russ, so much is going on.
It really is. It really
I have to tell
is.
you, Russ, you made my ears were ringing, my heart was pounding when you started to talk to me about Superman, of course.
Oh, yeah. Well. Brace yourself, Snyder haters. So a lot has happened this week with the screening of Black Adam. And we have to temper all of this with the fact that when Thor: Love and Thunder came out, the preview reviews were sort of overwhelmingly positive, and then that film actually got to the wider public and it was revealed to be a pile of shit. But the early reviews, or the Twitter reviews, have come out for Black Adam. Apparently it's hyper violent, hyper action packed, doesn't waste any time in getting to the meat, and is one reviewer, or more than one reviewer actually, has said it's very much along the lines of a Snyder movie. So they seem to have run with that. We won't know until we see it ourselves. I got ticket. I'm going to see it next Saturday. Also, I got tickets to Iron Maiden.
The same night?
Oh no! Iron Maiden's
Ah,
next year, June 23rd. But they
wow,
are
that's cool.
the tour that they're doing is sort of like one of their least popular albums, but it's my favorite Iron Maiden album. It's called Somewhere in Time, and they never filmed it like they did with Live After Death, and now they're going back and they sort of said, well, we should have really filmed this, but now we're just going to do another tour. So it's going to be like going back in time to 1989, Hammersmith Odeon. I was there. I met Bruce Dickinson. I used to work in a recording studio, and he got me backstage tickets and all of that stuff. So it's kind of cool. I didn't get backstage tickets this time, obviously, because it's like 30 years later or 35 years later. But I'm taking Sam with me. So I took her a few years ago when she was 13, and now she's going to be nearly 19 when I take her the next time. So there we go. So where was I? Yeah. So Black Adam has been seen, and now the riddle of is Henry Cavill going to appear or not has been blown. Yes, he is. Cavill is back, and there's talk now of two further Superman movies. And interestingly, really interestingly, there this doesn't come from a scooper or anything like that. This comes from, and I can't remember the name of it. Of course, I should have written it down and I didn't. Comes from like a celebrity uh, blogger group that sort of follow Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez around. They're kind of like the Bennifer sort of fan group, and this one outlet has picked up on this. And it's more to do with celebrity lifestyle and fun, so nothing to do with the stuff that we're into, superheroes and comics and stuff like that. And the person was saying that it was so great of Ben to frequently visit the set, and when he's not visiting the Jennifer Lopez's set of his new film, he's either looking after the kids or he's in Burbank signing contracts about dressing up as a bat. Now, if that had come from Sil Abdul or Mikey Sutton or someone like that, you could probably take it with a pinch of salt, because those guys are right 50% of the time. They've made a guess, it's been proven to right, and now they're going to be going, yes, we told you all along. I don't much follow with scoopers like that at all. But this doesn't come from a scooper. It doesn't come from a nerd source. It comes from somebody not interested in Batman, but has sort of mentioned it. So make of that what you will. But that would be so awesome if that Deathstroke Batman film is back on the cards. Also, David Ayer has now been doing screenings of his Ayer cut. So that's actually been seen now. Kevin Smith bought a cinema and he's screening Zack Snyder's Justice League there. Yes, Maiden. And in the fallout of all of that, of course, The Rock has been doing a lot of presses and a lot of talking to promote his new movie. And in one such interview, he's becoming more and more candid with how this film came to be, what it took to actually get Black Adam in the cinema, and more importantly, I guess for us guys, what it took to get Henry Cavill back. And The Rock said that it has taken the project was gestated 15 years ago, but it really started to pick up pace after Justice League and all of that stuff, and the DCEU not in a good place. Said that he took him 6 years to get where we are now, and getting Cavill back was the inference there. And he mentioned unequivocally that it was the previous regime at Warner Brothers, so Hamada, Emmerich, and Sarnoff, would not allow it. They would not. Were not interested in Affleck and were not interested in Cavill and wanted to recast. And they put the blockers on this for 6 years. So that's why we haven't had a new Superman movie. If there was, hey, Bloodsport, if there was any more proof required that these people wanted to replace Cavill and Affleck with Sasha Calle and Batgirl, there's the proof. But The Rock seems to be the force majeure in all of this. He seems to be changing the hierarchy in the DC universe on all sorts of levels. And he was asked, actually, would he be interested in the Kevin Feige role at DC? To which he said he it was very flattering to be asked that, and he thinks he can serve more as an advisor. That he's been a DC guy, a Black Adam guy since he was a kid. He loves the character. He loves the comics. He loves Superman. Superman's his first love, as many of us, their first superhero. And please God, this is a good film. I mean, apparently it's, you know, if it is Snydery, then I'm going to like it. If it is violent, then that's going to be good. I think because it's interesting, isn't it? The early trailers made it look a bit goofy, but apparently not. Apparently he's a bit of a savage in it, and Cavill's back. Looks like Affleck is definitely back for Aquaman. Looks like they're doing a lot of reshoots for the Flash, and potentially for Aquaman. Jason Momoa was seen recently doing a post on his phone to promote another program that he's in, another TV show that he's in. But there he was a couple of days ago, back in the Aquaman costume with Nicole Kidman, back on set with Dolph Lundgren. So clearly they're reshooting Aquaman. So it looks like everything's changing. The old stuff is out, or the sort of new stuff is out, and the old stuff has been reinstated. I know a lot of Snyder fans are going, "Oh no, it's Zack or nothing," but I think, and I've been saying this for a while, and it's not because I'm right or anything like that, but at one stage I was hopeful that the Snyderverse would be restored in its entirety, but I'm sort of coming around to the fact that they're not going to do that. But what I do think they're going to do is perhaps acknowledge that stuff happened, and then go with new creators with the same cast in a different direction for the next 5 to 10 years. And in order to do that, they've got to nail Henry Cavill down. They've got to nail Ben Affleck down, especially Ben Affleck, because he's, I think, 50 now. So he needs to get his work done sooner than later, to get to the end of their 10-year plan. And I'm hugely, hugely excited about it. No, it's not all of my dreams come true. But Henry Cavill, okay, with the John Williams music, it's not what it's not what I would like. It's a great theme, but I think it's Christopher Reeve's a Donnerverse theme. It's not a Snyder DCEU theme. But having said that, that was a theme that Cavill and Snyder originally wanted to use, but Warner Brothers would not let them. So Zimmer was brought in to retune it. But I don't know. I honestly don't know. I would prefer Henry Cavill's Superman theme with Henry Cavill, but that's small beer, isn't it? Cavill's back, Affleck's back. DCEU seems to be back on track. A lot rests on the success of this movie. So like I said, I've got my tickets. I'm going to see it next Saturday morning. I'd love to. I normally go and see these things on opening night, but I can't because my daughter's doing a lot of boxing training at the moment. She's got a fight in November, so she can't miss training to go and see Black Adam as much as I would love to. So Saturday morning is the day. So that's your Snyderverse, Superman, Black Adam, Batman, Cavill. Oh, and Cavill and everyone has been spotted in Los Angeles, and Cavill's got black hair and a Superman hairstyle. So if that doesn't tell you what they're doing there, and bearing in mind this is recently after the Black Adam reshoots, and now we've seen Momoa come out, I think there'll be cameos galore from Henry, leading into probably a Superman 2 and then a Superman 3 with Sasha Kaye, if not a Superman 2 with Sasha Kaye. But I think it'll be different to what it would have been under the previous regime. As I've said before, with their agenda and their plan, I think Henry would have been, I don't know if I can use the word on a family show, but essentially cucked in his own movie and, made to be subservient and talked down to the entire film. And I don't think he would want any part of that. I don't think that will happen in this. I think Supergirl will be the sidekick that she's meant to be and hopefully get her own spin-off movie. She's the spin-off, right? Superman is not the spin-off. Superman is the king of all superheroes. Even the most diehard Marvel fan will tell you Superman is the king of, he's the first, he's the best, he's the greatest, he's the fame, and he's the one we all love. So thank God he's back. And that's it. And I don't know if we got any chats to catch up on while I've been thrilling myself over that, because it's been a thrilling weekend. I saw the new Scott Adkins movie. I've seen Hellraiser. I saw Andor. I've seen House of the Dragon. I've caught up on pretty much everything. The only thing I haven't seen is Werewolf by Night. But let's catch up with the chats.
Yes, let's do that. BC, aka the New Dark Shadow, says, hello, everyone. We're at 15 days till Halloween. That is true. Guys, get your costumes ready. It's almost time to get out there and show what your costumes are like in your cosplay. And Bloodsport1 says, I miss you at New York City Comic Con. I can't believe I missed the opportunity. Me too, Bloodsport1. I was supposed to be there 4 days, but was only there for 2 days. So it was quite different than what I thought was going to happen. But Bloodsport1, don't you worry. We will have another opportunity to meet up again, I assure you. Latoya T is here this morning.
There she is.
She says, good morning, brunchers. And guys, check out Latoya T's Cocoa Tulip line. I assure you guys, you haven't seen fashion like this. Check it out. You're going to love it, and you're not going to be disappointed. Cocoa Tulip, Latoya T's fashion. So great to see you here this morning, Latoya T. And of course, Mario Lopez says, restore the Snyderverse. Exactly. Bloodsport1 says Black Adam this weekend.
Yeah, me too, mate.
Absolutely. Guys, I have to tell you, there's so much to talk about when it comes to this. Luminara 843. I also didn't see her at the con because she was there on days I wasn't there and vice versa. But Luminara, it is such a pleasure to see you, Luminara 843. Such a wonderful woman, and so nice to see you here in the morning on Sunday Brunch, Luminara. I hope you are well. And thank you for stopping by as always. Darth Plato says, Rex S2.
The king is you. You are the king? I don't know.
Well, thank you, Darth Plato. Bloodsport1 says, how is the new Hellraiser? I have to tell you, I have about 20 minutes left of it, but I love it. I think it's fantastic. This is how you do a reboot. I think it's wonderful, enjoyable. It's just some simple things about it that make the film watchable and fun and gory. You're going to enjoy it. Bloodsport1. I will be talking about it tomorrow with Lorena Creole on Ladies of the PGS, guys. We also have Stubble McShave is here with us, who says, hi, gang.
Hey, Stubble.
It's good to see you, Stubble. And guys, here is Latoya T's website, everybody, for Cocoa Tulip. Please do check that out. There's so much to talk about, Russ, and you kind of scratched the surface. Certainly, we have a lot to say about this because, Russ, up until this point, up until today, or maybe a week ago, it was so dour talking about the possibility of seeing Henry Cavill back as Superman. And it was even more dour because although Black Adam was advertised, it felt like something was missing for me. I knew I was going to go see that film, Russ. But honestly, I am much more excited for the film now, knowing that Cavill will be in it. Russ, I think it's very interesting. If you had told me a year ago this was going to happen, I would have said no way. And now we have all the hope in the world, all this excitement surrounding this, only to find out what we suspected all along, Russ, that they were certainly being pushed away from the franchise. And we mean pushed. Yeah. I'm sure the expectation after having such a successful run with the movies, so much fan praise, so much interest in these characters, to push them away and to not have any, I would like to say, healthy alternatives. And when I say a healthy alternative, go ahead and try and find somebody comparable to Henry Cavill. I dare you. If you can find that person, then you can do anything. You're an incredible casting agent. But honestly, Russ, let's just be honest about it. In the 10 years or so that we have had this dry spell, there hasn't been anybody who can hold a candle to Henry Cavill. And it shows because he's gotten offers everywhere under the sun for everything. He's had to push people away because he's been in such popular demand. So it just goes to show you the poor judgment, even just from a monetary point of view, from a studio point of view, when it comes to the value of these studios, increasing the value. Hell, this could have pulled us out of the studios out of the recession if they had kept him in there. It's something to think about economically, Russ, as well, and the success of a franchise for fans to keep coming back. There are so many elements that are focused, that are stacked upon this. It's not just about, well, I think this guy is good or bad for a role. It's about, well, do I want to work tomorrow? Do I want the studio to be open? Do I want to go ahead and put, all these people to work? How about, situations like that? Russ, I have to say that if it was a prideful decision, or they really felt that that was the best decision, I wasn't convinced. The fans weren't convinced. How does somebody talk themselves into believing that a decision, which was horrible for the studios, is the right decision to go with? What do you think their rationale was, Russ?
I think there's I mean, people talk about Batman versus Superman, which was never supposed to be the sequel. Snyder was pushed into doing that. He wanted to, if not take a Marvel route, certainly wanted to do Man of Steel 2 before he did anything. If you look at early interviews with Snyder from 10 years ago when the film was being made, he was saying, it all starts and ends with Superman. That's the arc. It's his story. Anything I do is always going to be concerned with him. He didn't want to do that, but they wanted to play catch up with Marvel, and he was forced into that, more than forced into the Doomsday thing, rushed into introducing the Justice League, none of which was his choice. And then everything blew up in their faces. They made Snyder cut out 40 minutes out of his movie, which made the movie incoherent, make no sense. And then the fan base was divided, the critics are divided. Then he's hiked off the project under the guise of taking a break for the tragic events that happen. They bring in Joss Whedon, they make that film. That film ends up like a pile of poo. Everybody hated it. And then the whole thing died down with the Justice League, and then you had Aquaman, and then you had Shazam, both of which were really big hits, and it almost looked like they'd been sort of proven right in their sort of like new sunny Marvelous direction. Then comes Zack Snyder's Justice League, the Snyder Cut, and their incompetence was truly laid bare at this moment. When that film came out and we saw it and we saw what he was going to give us compared to what we were given, they looked monumentally incompetent. Like how could you let this happen on your watch? But then you've got to be in the scenario of, what do you do as these high powered people? Do you climb down and say, yeah, we got it wrong? This was my fondest hope for them. They would say, yeah, look, we've seen this, we got it wrong. I'm happy to announce we're restoring the Snyderverse. They would have got everybody would have loved them for it, but they didn't. They doubled down, tripled down, because ego and position is all as far as they're concerned. And to admit that they'd made a mistake, I think would have admitted their entire strategy wrong, which now has come out that no one was really that interested in Batgirl. Which is really sad for the creators of that. I saw them interviewed on the Critical Drinkers channel. They seem like really, really nice guys, but they made a CW movie. And having dealt with producers myself, the truth of it is you have to do as you're told, because if you don't, somebody else will. And that's kind of the bottom line. So when these directors and people get a lot of flack, actually a lot of this stuff doesn't come from the director or the writer. It will come from the producers, and you're given instructions to produce something, and if you can, of course you can refuse, but then you're off the project and they'll get someone else who will do. So I think I just think it's a combination of being made to look really bad and trying to salvage a situation that was just unsalvageable, and doubling down on it, really.
Something, you make a lot of good points, and I do just want to mention Heath's Tabletop and Fantasy channel, guys. Heath is fantastic. Hi, Heath. Honestly, I did want to mention it because he has a fantastic program called, what is it called? It's called, I can't remember the name of it now. He has a show that he created himself, and it's called The Cultists. I can't believe I forget the name of it, but he had season 1 out. I promise you, Heath, I'm going to go ahead and do that watch party that I promised for season 1. And now that you have season 2, I'm going to do it for season 2 as well. But guys, please check out Heath's Tabletop and Fantasy. He doesn't just do tabletop games. He also does fantastic interviews with creators and other people like ourselves who are in the YouTube community talking about fantasy. So if you enjoy that, please check out Heath's channel. Once again, he has Cultist Season 1, which is available online on YouTube, and he's premiering Season 2 of The Cultists. If you like comedy and you like science fiction and fantasy, you will love The Cultists, guys. I've watched quite a few episodes, and it's hilarious. If you like the Cthulhu, you will also love it, guys. And Heath, thanks so much for stopping by. I so appreciate it. It's good to see you and to see other creators here on the channel. Certainly do check out Heath's Tabletop and Gaming. So one thing I wanted to say about this, Russ, in regards to what you were saying, is that you make a good point. You know, the film that they made, that they had to cancel, this $90 million, kerfuffle, catastrophe, whatever you want to call it, probably they would have been able to make it if they felt passionate enough about it, if they had followed the right procedures, meaning every studio makes B films. They make B films of superheroes. Like, this isn't new. You know, we've seen comedies of superheroes. We've seen some superheroes that are not so super, but they have other elements about them that we like. So I think that they would have still been able to make whatever they wanted, as long as they stuck to the plan of the successful superheroes that we know. And I think that there's a balance in this. I think that sometimes films like that have to be made. Sometimes there are B films that aren't that great, but we still watch them, or, oh yeah, it was a such and such film. And there might be fans of those films too, but not every film is a success. And what's interesting is that if they had gone ahead, kept those contracts with Cavill and with Affleck and continued to make the films, it would have been an easier ride for them to make more films of that other area, that other B area, Russ, because there would have been the money for that. There would have been the understanding of, it may not make that much, but it seems like there's interest in that. Let's go ahead and throw a film that way. What do you think, Russ?
I think you're absolutely right. They shit the bed. They literally shit the bed after their interference with Batman versus Superman, and they just didn't know what to do. And it's a source of real frustration for me that you employ this guy, Snyder. He gives you his 5-movie plan. He said, this is going to take place over the next 10 years. We'd be coming to the, like I say on this show, like virtually every week, we'd be coming to the end of Cavill's run and Affleck's run. Now this would be like, this would be the end game. We'd be having the Dark Side War, next year or whatever it would be. And it didn't happen. But to your point about B films, superheroes like westerns and gangster films and all these different sword and sandals movies and all the rest of them, they'll have their day, and we're sort of reaching a saturation point at the moment. I always wondered what would happen if Man of Steel came out today. I think it'd be far better received today than it was 10 years ago. The thing is, there is Marvel fatigue has really set in now. And I'll go on to talk about this in a minute. What Zaslav and Retro Girl here says, so far I'm excited by the way David Zaslav is guiding Warner Brothers Discovery with the masterful help of Alan Horn and is correcting the mistakes of the defunct Warner Media. Yeah, exactly. But I think there's a little bit more to it than that. In this sort of period of, I think we're in the sort of twilight of the superhero era now. The next 5 to 10 years, I think it will be overdone. So we've got this, but Warner Brothers now have got a window of opportunity. That Marvel fatigue has set in. They have course corrected, and they are now going to be, I think, if this film is good, and hopefully it is good, and hopefully The Flash and Aquaman will follow it tonally, and we'll get the Ayer cut and all of that stuff. This is their carpe diem time. If they can produce quality product, and what they seem to have been doing is learning from the mistakes that Marvel have made. Now, and you're talking about your B movie. What Marvel have done is very much, I believe, cheapen their product, in that there's so much Marvel TV shows, movies coming out left and right, none of them very good. Like Spider-Man No Way Home was a good movie in a sea of shit that's been phase 4. With this oversaturation on television, you know, you've got garbage like She-Hulk, which I'll talk about. Yeah, hopefully we can talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Great. Um, cheapening their product. Now, to your point about Batgirl, right? Zaslav, and back to what Retro Nerd Girl was saying, Zaslav said it's shit. It's just not good enough, and we are not putting superhero product on HBO Max. That is not what HBO Max is for, in my view. You know, paraphrasing Zaslav, he said, superhero, the Trinity, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. These are tentpole movies. These are multi-million-dollar films. These are event things. It's not something you shove on HBO Max and, you know, cross your fingers and hope it gets you a few subs. No. So it's almost the opposite of what Marvel are doing. He's taken it off the telly into the cinema with the characters that everybody wants to see. And I think if this is true, and we are going to get, if not the Snyder continuation, but the Snyder reality, let's call it that, if not the Snyder, but the sort of reality he's set up, you know, the events that all those could have happened and not really affect anything, because they defeated Steppenwolf, chopped his head off, and had a stare down with Darkseid. Darkseid's out there somewhere, but we can have Brainiac stories, we can have Lex Luthor stories, we can have whatever we want in the meantime. So yeah, I think they've got this opportunity over the next 5 to 10 years to really, really clean up. The actors will, of course, get older, but they all look fabulous. I mean, I can see Cavill doing this for another 10 years at least. I can certainly see Affleck doing it for 5 to 7 years and turning up, you know, for at least be part of a Justice League movie 10 years down the line.
Absolutely. And I do want to say hello to 1/6 Scale Man. Of course, this is Lael Rockwell, everybody, my co-host on Midnight Musings. And of course, you guys know I stream with Lael on Say What and Uncivilized Scoundrels on his channel. He says, and he would say, that's what he would normally say, Lael. It's such a pleasure to see you here this morning. He says, hit that like button, everybody. Yes, please do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel and continue to watch some of the videos on my channel so I can build up those watch hours so I can get monetized. Lael, it's always wonderful to see you here. And guys, after my show is over, actually a few minutes before it ends, head on over to the 1/6 Scale Man Network for Collectors Lounge International. If you are a collector and you want to find out more about the collecting community, Collectors Lounge International is the show that you should be watching on Sundays. Check it out on the 1/6 Scale Man Network. Lael, it is so good to see you here in the morning. And Retro Nerd Girl makes some interesting comments, Russ. She says, so far, I'm excited by the way that David Zaslav is guiding WBD, the masterful help of Alan Horn, and is correcting the mistakes of Warner Media. John Ware Jr. says Marvel had 4 introductory movies in 4 years before Avengers was released. DCEU had 3, if you consider Batman vs. Superman and an intro to Batman before Justice League. The ensemble lead up was shorter for DC. It's interesting to look at how these things worked out, Russ. Certainly, we know that a mistake was made. If anything, that they stopped making any kind of Superman film, so to speak. We know that that was a mistake. You know, I have to wonder, even so, let's say their arrogance, and we talked about why this happened in this scenario, it must have been quite an internal fight. I think, Russ, that there was a whole group of people like The Rock, like Cavill, who were pushing for it all this time. They believed in it. You mentioned, Russ, that that The Rock said he's been trying to do this for 6 years. Can you imagine the determination and the commitment? You know, we don't really talk about actors' desires in a lot of this. We hear them making comments, and it's very short and trite and not quite that important. But clearly, The Rock wanted us to know how long he's been fighting to have this made and why. Russ, do you think that I'm not quite sure how invested The Rock is. And I know that a lot of times people had said that Cavill wanted to re-up, but only if he had more creative control. Do you think Cavill's going to get more creative control? And do you think that The Rock has creative control here?
I think The Rock does. He's a very powerful individual within the hallowed halls of Hollywood, isn't he? But I would say that, I would guess, because we don't know, but I can't imagine Henry Cavill signing a contract to do a couple of cameos and that's it. You know, he's going to want to be more involved. He has often mentioned wanting to take Superman to his ultimate conclusion of, you know, the smiley happy Superman that we all know and love. And I think they've rather accelerated that process. The John Williams theme been quite indicative of the direction that they want to go in. I'm not a fan of it, as I've said, but it is what it is. That said, people like The Rock and Cavill have got more money than God, right? They don't need the money, but what they crave as actors, I imagine, is relevancy. And you know, Henry Cavill wants that marker, doesn't he? He wants to be looked at like Christopher Reeves as, you know, the quintessential Superman of his era. There has been nobody come close to Christopher Reeves until 2013, when to me, Cavill surpassed Reeves in simply because the films are more modern. And you look back at Christopher Reeves and those films, they're old now. I mean, they're 1978, nearly 50 years old, right? He was brilliant, but it was a different time. So Cavill's laid down a marker, and no one's ever dared compare anybody to Christopher Reeves up until Henry Cavill. And I think he's regarded as, let us just say, as good as. Okay, so there's that side of it. But with The Rock hasn't really got a, a quintessential role, a character that we know The Rock for. He's known as The Rock, right? He's been in The Fast and the Furious. He's been in Hobbs and Shaw. He's been in Jumanji. He's been in the disaster movies. He's been in a bunch of stuff, all of which are highly successful, but nothing to which he will be ultimately remembered for. And you look back at Sean Connery, James Bond. You look back at Christopher Reeve, Superman, and now Henry Cavill, Superman. But what do you think of The Rock? You just think of The Rock as The Rock, and I think he wants to lay down a marker as owning this role, making this role something really, really big and important in the DCEU. And why not? You know, he's delivered a lot of what many fans want, and you know, we've got to thank him for that.
We certainly do, and I do want to welcome Stavros Ananonglu, and I know I pronounced that wrong, Stavros, but welcome to the show this morning. So glad to have you here. Stavros says, "Hey y'all, hope everyone had a great start of the day. Marvel is not fatigued. They weren't ready for Fantastic Four. I almost said Final Fantasy. Fantastic Four and X-Men acquisitions. They had no direction." But then he also says, the billion-dollar question is, why didn't the mutants and Storm Reed family help out? This is a good question. And a lot of people are asking questions about the connections between the films, the flow, because we felt that in the earlier phases, but we didn't necessarily feel that flow, the connection later on. And as far as I'm concerned, the pandemic didn't help, but I think it's a little bit more than that. I think it's just bad mismanagement of these films. And I think, unfortunately, they lost creative control, Russ. They lost creative control. And once they lost creative control, now the film can come out, but then it's not the film that you thought it was originally. So you have this pretty timeline that everybody has seen a million times of all these great characters that we're looking forward to. And then when we see the film, it's not quite what we thought. For example, Doctor Strange Part 2. It wasn't exactly what we thought. Certainly didn't feel like it was about Doctor Strange necessarily. And Wanda didn't quite go to fruition like we would have liked. So I think it's very interesting that I think that these timelines might have been set 10, 15 years ago, Russ. And the scripts might have already been even created for all we know. And of course, the execution and the filming may have been one thing, but once they're released, changes were made and now it doesn't connect anymore. There's no connection because they removed all of those connections, and it's clear there is no connection. The ending was supposed to be different. How often have we heard this over the past few years, Russ? They changed the ending. There's reshoots, all sorts of different things. And it's confusing because of what we were expecting to see just in a normal connection Russ, we've seen different types of shows come and go. We know that they're going to make more films in these particular areas. There's no doubt about it. I know that we're going to see more Marvel films. We're going to see more DC films. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that we are going to continue to see this. Will they be able to reestablish the connections, Russ, so that this stuff makes sense to us, so it flows better? So, like 2 or 3 movies down the line, when someone pops up, we're like, oh my God, like that oh my God moment. Are we going to get that back? Because I haven't felt that since the last Spider-Man film, to be honest with you. I got a twinge of it in the last Batman film, but that last Spider-Man film, I felt that oh my God moment. What do you think, Russ?
I've said before, and I stick by this. I really think at the end, when Endgame finished, Marvel needed to stop, not forever, but just for a year or 2, just to let the dust settle. But they didn't. Now, it's easy to say, oh, it's pure greed, and they're just making a load of shit. And nobody sets out to make a load of shit. Like, nobody does. Often it turns out to be a load of shit, but no, not sitting there going, yeah, we're gonna. Except in one instance, and that instance being She-Hulk, where we'll talk about that in a minute, I guess. But I think you can say that about Marvel, but it's also difficult to be cross with them, given the stellar success that they had. What was the indication that people? There was no indication that people were getting. And it's still no financial indication that people are sort of getting fed up with it, I suppose. Although the box office returns are not $1 billion like they used to be, or over $1 billion or whatever it was. They're still making a lot of money and all the rest of it, but the cohesion and the interest around it isn't there. But if you're Marvel, you're thinking, well, people seem to love this stuff, but in their sort of rush to essentially deliver what they thought people wanted. Well, people like jokes. People loved Thor Ragnarok because it was funny. Let's get that guy back and let's give him free reign. No, bad call in that particular case. Our universe is so interconnected. We need to do this, but the problem that they're relying on is that they're relying on people who've got Disney Plus to understand what the hell's going on in Doctor Strange 4. Because if you haven't seen Wanda, you're going to be a little bit kind of lost, aren't you? So it's gotten bloated and huge and convoluted. And where do the Eternals fit into all this? And what happened to that thing that's sticking out in the middle of the ocean? And where's Captain Marvel gone? And all of these things. And if Nick Fury knew about Captain Marvel, why didn't he call her in the first place before it got to the snapping? All of these questions. It's just too big for me. If they'd have stopped, maybe done a TV show that didn't have any really wider connotations, like Moon Knight. If they'd have taken Moon Knight and done it properly, maybe that could have existed in that universe. Done something like Daredevil, the original series of Daredevil, where they mentioned the Battle of New York that happened in the Avengers, but it was clearly a street level thing that wasn't concerned with Chitaris and things like that. Daredevil's beating up thugs and mafia people, but they didn't, and they're in this situation now. So no, I don't think with their interconnected universe they can really course correct. It may be when the X-Men comes out, they take things in a different direction and move away from Spider-Man and Thor and all of those people and let those guys fade into the distance while we move on with the Fantastic Four and Silver Surfer and X-Men and all those other dudes.
This is a good point. And Blair de Blair says hello. Hello, Blair de Blair. Pretty cool name there. Also, very interesting, Stavros goes on to say Arashim, the judge, stole Galactus' moment and why it was a post-credit scene maybe and not in the movie. This was a huge question when it came to that film. Of course, as you guys know, I wanted the creature to emerge from the earth and completely destroy the earth. And that would have been a lot more interesting film. Mm-hmm. I think people would have been like, oh my God. And I think that's kind of the level of catastrophe and profound chaos that we need for what we're talking about, what we're actually relating to, where they stopped him from emerging. I thought that was ridiculous. I think that should have failed. And maybe they could go on to other planets in the universe and see what they can do. But it was unnecessary for them to get their way. And now it kind of doesn't make any sense in a way. It was just to appease someone. And I'm not saying that isn't in the comics. Maybe in the comics, someone does actually stop the immersion, the character from coming out of the earth, but I wanted to see him explode. I wanted to see just the complete, finally seeing one. I'm sure we've seen them in a little bit of the movies before, but I think this would have been the perfect time to do something insane like that, because we need something to shake it up. It needed to be shook up. It needed to be profound. And what we saw was pretty much a man who was essentially knocking around his ex-girlfriend. I didn't like it. I thought that what they did with Icarus, he could have tried to stop her, but for him to get into this fist fight with her felt very unnatural to me, Russ. But anyway, it's interesting, all the comments you guys are making. Retro Nerd Girl says Warner Media ignored everybody. Henry brought in Christopher McQuarrie with a proposal for a Superman film and was turned away. How do you make that kind of blunder? That is something we're all wondering about. But now we actually do have the answer.
McQuarrie spoke about that recently, and he said, "Yeah, look, yeah, I made the proposal, and I'm still here. No one's contacted me yet." So I would expect that down the road. Retro Nerd Girl, I think he's almost sort of nailed on, isn't he? To sort of do this, it's going to be either him or I think, is it Kowalski, the Top Gun director? One of those two guys is going to be given the Superman reins, and I'd rather think it will be McQuarrie. Because if you're Zaslav and Warner Brothers Discovery, the one thing you cannot do, you cannot fuck this up. Like, this has to be, it's got to be critically fan casual acclaim. This Superman movie, a lot is resting on it. So you need the best writers, the best directors, the best everything you can get for this particular movie.
Definitely. And 12-inch Moose Dream says, overall, to make the first DCEU Batman movie takes place when Batman was older was a mistake. To have Superman kill Zod was a mistake. That's interesting. And that's not the first time I have heard people say that. 12-inch Moose Dream, welcome to the show. Darth Plato says that The Rock has come a long way since the Scorpion King. He certainly has. And honestly, since his wrestling days, everybody. Certainly, we know he was known for that. We also have MB Dyson 829, who says Batman is a tentpole character, but a series that could do what the animated series did, but in live action would be better than 100 more movies. Now, Russ,
I've said this so many times. It's like a knife in my DC heart watching Daredevil, because Daredevil, that Netflix series, was so good, and I remember just thinking, why isn't this Batman Year One? Oh my god, it would have been good. And when I first saw the first season of Titans, I kind of thought Titans was going to go down that road, but they did. Titans is just garbage, but I love it so much. But for me, as I've said so many times, I didn't like the casting of Batman. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. That would be great. I don't agree with the last comment. I thought it was a genius idea, bringing Batman in like they did, and the argument over Superman killing General Zod has been done to death. But in that circumstance, that was kind of the theme of the film. That's what he had to do. He had to make a choice between his new home and his legacy, and ultimately he chose the people of Earth. And Zod had already said, "I won't stop. You'll have to kill me." Now, I don't know what else a filmmaker can do to tell you that this is the kind of movie I'm making, and this is the way that it's going to go. He literally says it: "You will have to kill me." So you might not agree with the take, but it's a legitimate take. And it was Superman's first day on the job, and he made lots of mistakes, and that was all kind of part of it. And Snyder has been sort of very vocal about this. Like, if you think these creatures, super gods, don't kill you, he said, you're effing dreaming. It's like he's trying to do a realistic take, or I would say a hyper realistic take, not like Nolan. It was comic book world, but what would happen if Superman was real? What would this Bat vigilante actually be like? Broken character that has become so bitter and disillusioned, and now all of his hatred is fixated on this. Because we talk about Batman, we idealize Batman. Batman's fucking nuts. That's why he does what he does. Like, he is not Bruce Wayne. He is the Batman. And that arc that was very much explored in The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. When Batman's own, Bruce Wayne's own subconscious is taunting him. You're the mask. I'm the real person, and all of that stuff. And was quoted on the Comic Con when they were going to make the film. It was literally a line out of the Dark Knight. So each to their own, but that's my feeling.
Yes, no, it's an interesting perspective. And Joker Voice says Marvel's number one problem, letting an activist like Victoria Alonso start steering the ship, bypassing 40 years of stories to jump into all new, all different Marvel, to not pay royalties. And of course, Russ, from what we have observed, the idea that, sometimes a screenplay is written one way, but then the way it's executed can be completely different. It's not like it was before. The creators don't have the same level of control like they did before. So that should be mentioned. And of course, hello to Rogue Thinker, says greetings. Hello to you, Rogue Thinker, and hello to Jerry Mendoza. I sure hope you are great this morning. Now, Stubble McShave says, I certainly feel the superhero fatigue. I spend most of my movie theater money on original movies, and now check out the comic book movies when they're released on streaming. That is very interesting. A lot of people are doing that. And 1/6 scale man says, I happen to want both studios to succeed. Cutting both down only limits the possibility of great content we can get out of both. I want DC and Marvel to have equal success. Absolutely. Certainly, they should be piggybacking on one another in a sense.
Well, that's what The Rock said, isn't it?
Yeah, fun to kind of compare the two, as we have done our whole lives with DC versus Marvel. The fun and playfulness of this, where each of them benefit, it's mutually beneficial, and they make a load of cash and actually push the characters even further. And Russ, you mentioned the Titans. I watched the Titans. I think that there's room for not just the animated series, which you said was incredible, but also series like the Titans, where you can have fun like that. You can have fun with the characters, like the character that's half Superman and half Luther.
Lex Luthor, yeah.
And they were smart enough to make him look like Superman, everybody, because they're not stupid. I think that character is amazing. But we need fun things like that, because perhaps he might not be an ideal primary character. Perhaps it wouldn't work right now. Maybe in 10 years, in 20 years, that story, we would be ready to hear that story. But to at least have them exist, explore some of this fun stuff. That's what these TV series are for. Sometimes you hit TV series gold, but it doesn't always have to be. And we understand that when we watch some of these TV series. So certainly they've giving or getting a variety of ways they can express themselves creatively is so important. And I think that this being stymied, which is essentially what they've done for the movie selections, everything is pretty much gone. That creative excellence we haven't seen. So we feel that. And now we're kind of looking to some of the other areas, which were already good, as you mentioned, the animated series. But certainly there's no reason for one to do better than the other. I honestly think the rivalry is good. And it certainly does promote the idea of what the potential can be for these IPs. So, Russ, it's so much to absorb when we're thinking about this. If we now know that Cavill is going to be in Black Adam, are we naturally supposed to expect more movies? What do you think is going to happen? How do you think this is going to be introduced? What do you think the next step is going to be? Because everybody wants the reunion, right? Of the Justice League. Everybody wants this. It seems silly not to do it. It seems silly not to bring Cyborg back. It seems silly not to bring these characters back, but it doesn't seem that likely, at least at this moment. But since we've had such a revelation, what do you think? Do you think it's going to be something that's we'll get the next step in the story, Russ?
It depends, doesn't it? If Black Adam isn't massive, then none of this probably will happen, because they've done what we wanted, the fans wanted. They've brought Henry Cavill back. There's the promise of more Superman movies, but in order to see that fulfilled, you must support Black Adam. We have to support this film if we want more of it, and that will very much depend on how good Black Adam actually is. And at this moment, we just We just don't know. We've got the initial responses that are praising it and all the rest of it, but who knows?
Yeah,
Um,
it is something to think about. Rogue Thinker says, I think the Eternals who turned against their creators were the evil ones. That's very interesting. And it would have been nice to have seen a twist like that. But it feels so uncertain as to who was right and wrong in that entire scenario. And I think that in itself is a problem, other than maybe Icarus killing one of the the Eternals. I'm not quite sure. Mark Goes Blind Gaming says, hello, Mark. Well, so nice to see you here this morning. So, you know something, Russ, in addition to all this happening at this moment, we kind of had two series that were not great, but I'm not even quite sure what we were expecting from it. We had two series that were not that great. And then we had two series that were spectacular, but I want to get into that in a minute. I'm going to play my promo intro outro, which I play in the middle of the show because I like to play it then. Tom Jr. Jackson says, subscribe to Bloodsport. Certainly do that, guys. And I'm going to play it's literally 30-second promo that CJ made for me. We'll be back in 1 second.
Loving the synth wave.
I love that thing. So thank you, CJ, for that. Certainly, we have had a lot of series going on now, and none had more advertising and more chatter about it than the Rings of Power, Russ, which has come to a conclusion. And I don't know about you, Russ, but it wasn't what I expected, and nor was She-Hulk, which has also come to a conclusion. But I never guessed, Russ, that She-Hulk in itself would focus on YouTubers.
Yeah, well, this is indicative of the mindset of these people. Right now, Mikey's not here to reprimand me for this, but I haven't watched it because I said 3-4 weeks ago I'm not putting myself through this. It's insulting my intelligence. It's actually insulting me personally, for who I am and the way I was born. It's literally that kind of show that preaches you shouldn't hate people for the way that they're born and the way that they look, apart from if you're like me, in which case I'm a target to be kicked, right? But then to sort of come out after the fact and admit that they knew they were going to get trolled, and basically the sort of thinking was like that to the very people that they're supposed to be making the show for, if you like. We spoke about Emmerich, Sarnoff, and Hamada level of arrogance, but the level of arrogance of these people, it's staggering. It's absolutely staggering to go into a show with earlier on I said everybody wants to produce something good. Like nobody goes in, even whatever film it happens to be, Captain Marvel, nobody went into that thinking we're going to make a crap movie, right? But in this particular case, they went in with an agenda to attack the fan base and canned responses that if you dared to raise criticism of the quality of this show, you are all the ists and phobes that we are so familiar with now that it's become it's the go-to defense. Your show's crap. Oh, you're a racist, or you're a misogynist, or you're a transphobe, whatever you happen to be. I actually, I'm speechless, man. I can't get over it. I can't believe that the sort of brazenness of this to say, yeah, we just wrote the whole thing as a fuck you to the neckbeards, and it's like, dude, like, and you're wondering why your show is derided, mocked, a critical, apart from the shills, any honest critic, it's a complete critical, commercial, and fan base failure. Like that show appeals to nobody. Nobody likes that show. Who cares if we get another season of She-Hulk? Oh, Mikey's come from his sick bed to put me to rights. Um, yeah, and you know, once you come out and admit that, what do you think will happen when season 2 comes out? Do you think that the fans, the actual fans of the character, are going to forget this, or do you think they're going to come back in twice as hard and twice as bad and twice as nasty? You know, you've basically just told them that they're all a bunch of whatevers. No, fuck that show. Fuck those people.
Well, Bloodsport One says, "Have you seen Halloween Ends?" He says it was a total crap show, disrespectful to the Myers lore. I haven't seen it, Bloodsport One. I haven't heard too much about it. Russ, have you seen it?
No, it's on the watch list. But I'm going to admit, as much as I love John Carpenter and I like the first movie, I never really jumped onto the sort of Halloween bandwagon. So, but I will watch it. But I want to see the monster one first of all, the Werewolf by Night.
Yeah, Werewolf by Night sounds amazing. And unfortunately, Michael Lito, hi, Mikey Lito, you've told us that you're not well. We're sorry to hear that. I knew something was wrong. I reached out to Tom Jr. Jackson asking him if he had seen you in the chat somewhere, and he said no. And I figured that you might not be well. But it is good to hear from you. We hope you feel better soon, Mikey Lito. Certainly a member here that we value and enjoy having here on Sunday Brunch. So certainly there is that. However, he's not too unwell to say, please, no more She-Hulk. And I had made a comment how unprofessional She-Hulk actually is. It's supposed to be about a working professional. You know, she's not what I would call a seasoned attorney or anyone in that profession, I think, you know, unfortunately. And it was very funny because on another broadcast, they had mentioned that the Sokovia Accords were thrown out just very briefly in a one sentence comment. And I thought it was very funny because here you have a group of writers who are trying to write law according to, you know, let's say US law here in the US, follow the rules of how to write that. And now, you know, they're having difficulty with that. And now you want them to write international law. You know, they should have stayed as far away from talking about Sokovia or the UN or any other kind of like Hague level, you know, types of law comments. That should never have been included in this show. I think that unfortunately we saw what She-Hulk was really about, which is the writers themselves, as they show themselves, they weren't clever. They're not Deadpool. They're not that talented. Or if they are talented, they're not able to show their talent. So we're not seeing writing that could afford us going into a writer's room and saying, hey, look how cool this is. It didn't come off well. And unfortunately, it seems like this whole show was more about the writers than about She-Hulk. Because as far as I'm concerned, she wasn't a star in her own show. You know, Tatiana Maslany has missed a huge opportunity in a character that she could have made iconic. And as far as I'm concerned, if I were her, I would have wanted to have, you know, if we're going to go with CGI, I would have wanted the sexiest version. I would want the sexiest superhero of all time. That's what I would ask them to. Just make her sexy. Even if she doesn't look like me, just make her incredibly sexy. I'm fine with it. But instead, we got some very odd CGI moments of a weird suit she would wear, and it didn't flow right. You know, it was disappointing to see that they didn't put in the effort to even make She-Hulk look good. And, you know, this could have been amazing, Russ. This could have been amazing.
And the mad thing is, I saw a picture of Tatiana Maslany next to the sort of reference model that they used for She-Hulk, and I was like, why didn't they just paint her green and CGI her face? Like, and then but instead they had this sort of like, what's the Uncanny Valley version of, you know, sort of walking around like that. I don't know, man. And she's a really good actress, you know, and like her performance in that, you know, the episodes that I saw, you know, she was great. You know, it's just that everything she said and did was nauseating, but her herself, she was a great actor. I think what Retro Nerd Girl is very kind. The missed opportunity. There were some good ideas, but it was all unorganized and grossly wasted the time of the audience by not following through with any of the storylines. Yeah, I mean, I don't know because I stopped, I tuned out, but I just think when you've got creators coming out saying that they wrote the entire raison d'etre of their show was to denigrate its fan base, and they can pretty it up as much as they want to, but that's what they said, and that to me is it's disgusting, really. you know, these people are paying money to subscribe to a service and looking forward to seeing a character that millions of them, dearly love, to sort of be told that this show's not for you, fans. Go to
And
hell.
Tom Jr. Jackson says, I liked She-Hulk and I'm hoping for a season 2. Well, we are glad that you liked it, Tom. Jerry Mendoza says, Law and Order SVU is a lot
It's
better.
brilliant. Kelly Giddish is leaving that apparently after a million
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
And
Doom
Mikey
doom.
Lito says the show is completely aimless and destroyed not only that character, but several others by making it more cartoonish. I can feel my temperature rising. You know something, Mikey Lito? It gave me a headache and not the good kind. I was, just, it was sad. But, MDB Dyson makes a good point. Lou Ferrigno, Bill Bixby Hulk is still awesome. Absolutely, guys. I had made a joke that why didn't they do a show like that? And that little blip that they did at the last episode, it was not great. It wasn't a great parody of it, or whatever they were trying to do. So, thank you, Mikey Lito. He says, I'd rather see the Celestial destroy the Earth than see another season of She-Hulk. Mikey Lito, you know exactly what I'm thinking. Certainly, that's what I wanted to see in it. And I also wanted to read Mario Lopez's comment. The last episode of She-Hulk is another nail in the coffin of realism. That should be in the Marvel. That should be in Marvel. The last episode is it's a duplicate.
Double pose.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're right. Now, I did also want to talk about, and hello, The Hidden. The Hidden says, if She-Hulk gets season 2, I wonder if the MCU will make her look bigger. I did want to mention, Stubble says, I watched only the first 3. And he doesn't spend his time on it. Yeah,
exactly.
Agreed. And you know what? The She-Hulk conversation is over. I want to talk a little bit about Rings of Power, Russ, because they spent so much money and time on that show. And a lot of people are saying that it's not quite what they hoped for. Did you see all of Rings of Power? And
no, mate. I told you a couple of weeks ago. Like I watched the first. I think I watched the first 3, maybe 4 episodes, and then I came on here. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. This is, as Stubble says, life's too short. Like I'm not enjoying this. This is, even if I wasn't so against what they did to the law, let's just say, just take that out of the equation entirely, it was still shit. There was it had no redeeming qualities for me whatsoever. It didn't look right, it didn't feel right, it probably didn't even taste right. It was just boring. And as I said, I think I said last week, this is the problem that Amazon will have with this, is like, once you get rid of all the sort of, bigots like me and, hateful people, the millions and millions and millions of them that there seems to be, and, there's so many of them, they can't censor all of the reviews. Once those people have been sort of sidelined and istophobed and called trolls, great. What about Joe Casual? Who's actually watching this show? Who's going to sit through this incomprehensible morass of poor acting, bad special effects, and everything else? That's where your real market is. I think Rob Burnett always says, doesn't he? The hardcore nerds make up about the most 20%. Well, you've already lost all of those with by the creative decisions that you've made. The Tolkien fans were out before the show even started. So however many millions of those there are. So you're relying really on getting the interest of your Amazon Prime subscribers. Like, you are literally fisting us with the advertising for this. Like, I can't turn on Amazon without getting trailers for it and pictures of it. And, well, why don't you watch this after you've watched this other show? No, I don't want to. But if it's crap, they're not going to stick around for it. They're certainly not going to be invested in it. And now you've got a break of what, 2 years for the next season? You've lost your momentum, and your first season was crap. So where do you go from here? I don't know.
One of the biggest things that I thought was very interesting was that, and I am not a Tolkien scholar. I'm just putting that out there, guys. I certainly am not going to insult you by telling you that I am an expert in his magnum opus of a work. I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to tell you is that I did hear from someone who had mentioned that it took 90 years for them to make some of these rings. 90 years.
Mm-hmm.
Russ, that's a long time. Which I had to kind of catch myself. I'm like, gee, that's kind of a long time. I think whether it was 90 years or not, those rings came rather quickly. Was it like the last 30 minutes of the last episode that we got the rings?
Don't know. I didn't watch it.
Well, it was very odd. And the other thing that I was going to say is that the rings that they made don't look like a ring an elf would make. Now, I don't know what they're supposed to look like. So I'm just putting that out there. And hello, Yas Stravasava. Nice to see you today. I don't know what these rings are supposed to look like. But Russ, if it were you and someone put rings in front of you, and let's say 3 of the rings had beautiful, intricate designs with diamonds in them, and one of the rings had a stone that was so enormous it was like the size of a strawberry, which ring would you think was an elven ring? Like what they presented looked like something you would find in a jewelry store.
One of those machines, like one of those picking machines, like a toy one.
It was so out of control in regards to the way it looked. And thank you, Stravos. I'm going to put that up in a second. Latrone Latham, hi Latrone, says, good morning, and Russ. It's hard to fathom why Feige is signing off on subpar things like Thor, Love and Thunder, and She-Hulk. His Disney corporate high-ups are making him do this. They are making him do this.
Maybe. I know we sort of touched on this earlier on, didn't we? Latrone, given the massive, massive success that they had, given the fact that everybody loves the Marvel humor and the quips and the one-liners, the sort of roadmap was there, and you can kind of, even though a lot of it was rubbish, there's a part of me that sort of sees, well, that's what people like. We'll give them more of what they like, but they've lost the pathos and they've lost their way. So I don't know if it's the Disney higher ups or not. I couldn't tell you, but there is a part of me that thinks Feige's thinking, well, this is what people want. They want funny, they want light, they want breezy, but they've kind of lost what was quintessentially part of the first 3 phases, I think.
Yes. And Joker Voice makes a good point about it being a huge fan base that is very knowledgeable. I'm not as knowledgeable as I could be, but I know a thing or two. And thank you for mentioning that. And of course, we do like Jane Theory, who is another YouTuber. I think she's wonderful. Stavros says 90 years of reinforcing powers. That's very interesting. And perhaps maybe the most profound comment that I've heard is from Rogue Thinker. Rogue Thinker says they looked like candy ring pops.
Well,
they did.
No. I imagine they did, because having seen the first sort of few episodes, like I said earlier on, it just nothing looked right, nothing felt right. It just, you've got a precedent. Your precedent has been set, and it was set 20 odd years ago, right? There's your blueprint. Follow that blueprint. Don't phone up Peter Jackson and say, hey, would you help us with this? And then send him a script or whatever, and then he doesn't like it, and then you just blank him. Like, the guy was there. Do that. Just do what he did. Only said it a couple of thousand years before, and everyone's a winner. But no.
I'm going to see if I can find it. I don't know why I did this. I'm going to see if I can find it, because I was just so shocked by what I saw, just from, even a creative perspective. They took so much care when they made these rings, right? We've saw jewels and gemstones on all the elves. They're very specific looking. They look like some sort of elven artistry. They have intricate designs. You guys, you don't know this, but I like jewelry. So, and I guess some of you may have guessed that I do like jewelry, because sometimes when I am sharing screens, you can see what's on the other screen looks like jewelry.
Mm.
So whenever I share a screen, like you see these big rings, I'm not buying big rings, but the point is that I think you're right. I can't find a picture of it. Rogue Thinker, they didn't look real. This was
I
so
tell you, here you
disturbing.
go. Yash makes a really good comment here. Right
Yes.
down the bottom, he says Peter Jackson couldn't replicate what he did. The Hobbit films were awful. Now I know that RM will probably have issues with that because I know you're a massive Hobbit fan. But let's just say that they were not as good as Lord of the Rings. I think we can agree on that at least. You know, in all departments, they just were not as good, right? However, Yash, you got to think he's had the benefit of hindsight in the same way that DC has seen the mistakes that Marvel are making, and they're trying not to make those mistakes. I think 20 years down the street, if you're Peter Jackson, you're looking back at it and thinking, well, maybe I wouldn't have made those choices. Also, it was not he originally wanted to make 2 movies, and he was made to stretch it into a trilogy because the producers said so. But I don't know. I think it would have been a good call to sort of bring him in. But you can, on the other side of that, Yash, I can see the thinking behind the creators of it, because as soon as you bring in Peter Jackson, then it becomes automatically a Peter Jackson production, and those 2 chaps that they employed to do it would have to take his orders. I suppose that would have been his term, a bit like sort of George Lucas in Star Wars, right? Like he turned around and said, well, I think it was best to step back because they just didn't want my suggestions at this point, because he's going to want to make it his own. So maybe it was the right decision for them, but ultimately the wrong decision for the project. But I think he would have been valuable given the distance of time between his masterpiece and his not so great trilogy of The Hobbit. He would have learned from that, I think.
Well, I think that Peter Jackson has also grown since he's made those films. It's not going to be the same. It may have a similar style, but it won't have the same feel. I mean, after all, look at how different The Hobbit was from the 3 previous movies that you said, Russ. So certainly that's something to consider. And I think that, it would have a different flair to it because it's going to be from a different time period in, there. But I have to tell you that it's just it's just so bewildering seeing that that they were so different looking compared to what we're accustomed seeing elven jewelry and elven pieces. And I have friends who have bought this. This isn't that important, but who've spent a lot of money getting reproductions of the jewelry from the original series as well as The Hobbit or whatever films they were. They wanted to look authentic and like the way they would expect it in the law. It's supposed to look like a fantasy film. It's supposed to look like fantasy rings. And what they created, it just doesn't look fantasy like it. It just looks like anything you could go pick up at any jewelry store. It's not special. It doesn't look magical. Yeah, so I was disappointed. I know this is not that important, but it's these details that fans notice in a show like this, where I would go ahead and spend a couple $100 if it was an authentic looking ring, because we want that magic again. We want to wear something that looks cool like that. And then when they don't reproduce something like that and we get something that looks so different, just looks very modern looking. So for me, that was a disappointment. I'm going to talk to more of my friends who do collect. There's a company called Rock Love, and they recreate jewelry from different shows. Do I have a piece here? Like here, this is not at all what you guys thought I was going to be talking about today, right? But I felt it was important only because the show is called Rings of Power. It's about those rings, right? I mean, so anyway, Rock Love made a Baby Yoda pod.
Cool.
And then it opens up. How do I open it up? Oh, yeah. It opens up. I'm not showing this because I want you guys to go get a Baby Yoda pod. I'm not doing that. What I'm saying is they made rings for a show called Rings of Power that look like what the other person said. It looks like a candy ring. It doesn't look like what I would imagine a beautiful elven crafted master craft ring, made that's going to be incredible. It didn't look like that. So I have to ask myself this question. It looks like they went to a jewelry store in Hollywood Boulevard and picked out a few rings. So it destroys the fantasy. It's not the most important thing, guys. But like I said, those little things add up in a show where, it goes on and on and on, where you're not getting what you thought you were going to get in regards to that
Well,
immersive
it's indicative
experience.
of the lack of care, isn't it? I mean, like in Lord of the Rings, all of the background stuff, like the books were sort of filled in, in Elvish. They'd employed people to do that stuff that you would never see, but just to give the care that they took over the Jackson stuff. And this just seems to have been, oh no, we've got $1 billion. People will love it, and it's been proven not to be the case.
Okay, here, I think I got them because it just annoyed me so much.
Okay.
Wait till you see this, Russ. Of course, I have to go back because I went too far.
Naturally.
So just give me 1 second, guys. Oh, thank you. Tom, I love you. Yeah, if you want to pick up any of that jewelry, you can go to Rock Love and see it. So here are the rings that they forged. I don't know if you
Yeah,
can
they're
see it.
great, don't they?
Well, does that look like an elven ring to you? Like,
No, it just looks garbage. I'm the wrong person to ask her it. Like this show just didn't gel with me at all. But yeah, it's over. It's going to be gone for another couple of years, and we will see what happens. And it's interesting. Earlier on, we were talking about She-Hulk and the sort of preemptive strikes that people make. That these companies make when their show is crap and they attack the fan base and they say that they're all trolls and they're this and that. Interesting that the Rocky Balboa show in all of this House of the Dragon got similar. Why are you doing the race swapping? And then the show sort of came out, and all of a sudden, okay, it might not be accurate. And we kind of know why it's in there because of the quotas and all that sort of thing. And the creators sort of touched on it briefly, didn't they? So, well, look, these are the kind of directors, and this is the choice that we made. But none of that seems to matter, does it? So your kind of argument that people are attacking the show because they're trolls and bigots. Why is House of the Dragon not being attacked then? Why is that then? Because it's the same kind of show, it's the same kind of genre, got the same kind of race swapping. Could it be because the Rings of Power is not is garbage, and House of the Dragon it's just smashed it out of the park, hasn't it? Like I missed it. Missed it the week before last, so I caught up with a double episode. I was so glad that I caught up with it because it's just getting better and better and better every week that goes by. And I'm sure they're kicking themselves now because they didn't know how this was going to land, right? And it could have been as bad as Game of Thrones, if not worse. And now I bet they wish that they'd done the first season with Millie Alcott, and then the second season with another actress, and then a third season. Just constant. But they didn't know.
Yes, I think they would have been able to do that very successfully. And hello, Zachariah 315.
Hey, Zachariah.
Good to see you. I think that would have been ideal. I would have loved more of House of the Dragon. I can't get enough of House of the Dragon. I would have liked to have seen a much longer sexual relationship between the princess and Cole play out on the screen before, almost to a point where we thought or believed she might go with him. It wasn't necessary, but I think it would have been an interesting tryst because, we all knew she wasn't going to go with him. But if we believed it, if we saw that their relationship was so loving and so romantic, and then she's like, no, I'm going to marry somebody else. Sorry. Then it would have been like, oh, wait a minute. That came from nowhere. She loves this guy. So, Russ, you make a good point. And I think that it could have gone even further. It's my favorite too, Retro Nerd Girl. It's so well crafted and ironic. And of course, Yash, this is my favorite part. As far as I'm concerned, and I've said this to you, Russ, and I've said this to everybody who's in the chat already. My favorite thoughts are that no matter how many children Rhaenyra has, even if they have blue hair or purple hair or whatever color hair, it does not matter. She has them, and she's like, yeah, and so what? Yeah, what are you going to do about it? I mean, she's just so bold, and she's sticking to her guns, and there is nobody that can drag her down. I just love her.
How cool was Damon after that particular comment? Like, the guy's such a fucking wild card. He's done what he's going to do next, and that was just like, it's almost like the guys. I wish I could write as well as they do, but they just must have been having such a laugh, like with this character. You know, like, "Oh, what are we gonna do with him?" You know, what if someone said that, this is what he'd do. Because we go back to it again, he loves his family. You know, he is a
Yes.
Targaryen, and he will, and that's a slight against his family, and he just puts up with. Oh, it was brilliant,
Yes.
absolutely brilliant.
And I do just want to mention Tom Jr. Jackson's comment. If you like Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, great. If not, it's okay as well. It's okay to like these shows. Yes, guys,
Sure, it
share
is.
your opinions.
Sure.
Yes, whether it's the same as ours or different, certainly you are welcome to do so. Yes, I like the word. I like that word. I'm not going to say what it is, but I also like the word. I like when the guy said, "You want me to be your whore." That was like one of my favorite things. And then, as I told you guys, I found a TikTok clip of it that repeats it like over and over again, and I watched that about 70 times. So I think that the show certainly is very interesting and fun and playful. And Darth Plato, yes, maybe it is 50 Shades of Dragon for me. Maybe that's what it's doing. Maybe it's fulfilling that fantasy. I really like that explanation. And Yash says, chills, that actor who played Vaemon Valerian killed it. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yash also says up above, just something that I wanted to sort of touch on. He goes, you know,
Yes,
who cares what the race of the actor is, as long as he's killing it. And you know, you're absolutely right
yeah,
in one way,
absolutely.
and not in
Mhm.
another way. It's kind of like, why do they make these changes? And that's the question that we always sort of come back to. Just stick to the law. But as the producers of that, or the creators behind that show said, "No, we were just told that we had to do this, and this is the choice that we made." Now, having said all of that, and it wasn't the way it was written, actually, the fact that they've chosen to sort of make all of these characters black, you know, and black and mixed race characters and all that sort of thing, actually works, and it works well, and nobody care. You know, like, after the initial
It works
kerfuffle
so well.
of the
Oh, it works.
why are you doing this? Okay, well, you've done it, but actually it fits perfectly into the
Yeah, I
world.
love the tension of it all.
It works. It just works. And that's the difference. But the question always is, and Rob Burnett's asked this question so many times, is like, if there's a legit reason for doing it, then do it. But nobody seems to ever be able to come up with a legit reason other than, you know, because reasons, and that's fine. Having said all of that, we do need more representation. That's a fact. But as long as it's not forced. Now, if you saw Hellraiser, right, that's got representation in that film of all sorts, right? But it's not the point of the film. It's just the people that are in the film. And at no point does anybody sort of get up and preach. It's just, these are the people, this is the situation that they're in, and that's life. And it
Hmm.
works. And it works perfectly in the same way that it works in House of the Dragon. Okay, we've decided that they're all going to be black. That's their clan, and they're all, that's how they look, and that's what it is, and that's the direction we were given, and that's the choice that we made. Boom, and it worked, and nobody's got a problem with it. Nobody has a problem with it.
Absolutely. And I probably said this before, although I'm not quite sure if I said it. I love seeing these men, these black men with dreadlocks. It reminds me of the Caribbean. For me, that is the feeling that I get when I see them and the family. So I love seeing that. You know, and I know it was not part of the original story. I get that.
Mhm.
So you know, it's almost making me think different things about different folklore and everything else. There are so many stories to be told, but I can't help but thinking about the Caribbean because we have men with dreadlocks like that, and that is the norm. So seeing it in a show like this, I'm truly expecting him to go and fuck shit up, you know, because they're tough men. So I, I have to say that, you know, it's very interesting to me. I see the story going a different way because I am looking at it from a cultural perspective. Now,
Mm.
if I were to say this even more for, let's say, Rings of Power, they didn't use Lenny Henry right. He should have been the one who discovered, you know, the wizard. He should have been the one kind of leading everybody, and they should be following him. And he shouldn't be, you know, kind of like tagging along saying that, you know, they wonder if this tall character is, you know, they kind of make the Harfoot sound ignorant and stupid because everything bad happens, they blame it on this other guy. And I'm like, no, they wouldn't do that. You know, they
Well,
should just be
they've caught
honest.
some heat from that, haven't they? Because they've sort of, you know, they've given them all Irish accents, and you know, it was jokes in England in the 70s and 80s was always like, you know, sort of making fun of Irish people for being thick. That was kind of the, that they were the butt of every joke. You hear about the Irishman that did this, you hear about the Irishman that did that, and obviously Irish people were not cool with that, and this sort of seems to be reinforcing that sort of stereotype of thick Irish people going around being thick. It's really really insulting. It's supposed to be the wokest show ever. That they're against all of that stuff, and here they are doing that. It's so oh man, it just blows my mind. The show just what I
I
saw
had
of it
no
blew my mind.
aware that I'm sorry, I had no idea and was completely unaware that that was an issue, Russ. I
Mm,
didn't know that. Wow. This is just adds even more fuel to the fire. But to be honest with you, the way that they portrayed the Harfoots is degrading.
yeah.
So, this is, there's no other way that I can see it. They're dirty. They don't look well kept. They don't have each other's backs, and they're incredibly ignorant characters. And I think Lenny Henry, they should have let him run it like he was running Chef. You remember him in Chef, where he was
I
very
didn't
strict
watch
and
Chef, but I heard good
well,
things about it.
I did, and it was great. And he was in charge, and he ran the ship. And that's how the Harford should be. You want to make a message about these characters, make them different from what we've seen before. Make Lenny Henry run the show. It could have been a comedic part of the show. This could have gone in so many different directions. And yet we don't see that from him. And everybody was expecting a stellar performance from him. And we all had great expectations for that.
Well, it's interesting. You've got Retro Nerd Girl up there talking about Damon, and she spoke earlier about She-Hulk being a missed opportunity. Now, a bigger missed opportunity is Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power. You've got $1 billion to make the most epic thing ever, and you manage somehow not to do it. You just made every single choice based on a bunch of corporate directives, and who knows how much control these two writers, the showrunners, actually had. People are giving them a really really rough time, but who knows what they were told that they had to do. And people are saying
yes.
these guys are idiots. They haven't produced anything. And Jeff Bezos apparently has been very, very hands-on with this show, wanting to shape this show in his own image and all of that stuff. So who knows if these guys are truly as incompetent as this show makes them appear, or if actually they're just doing as they're told. You've been offered millions of dollars to run a show. It's all of your dreams come true. But imagine it was you and me. We were just plucked out of somewhere. We had to write a movie or something like that, and we were going to go and do it. And they said, "Oh no, but yeah, but no, but you've got to do this, you've got to do that. It has to be like this." And we can say no, and then they'll go to the next couple and the next couple and the next couple and so on. So I don't know.
Well,
Um,
is that something that's going to come up in contracts in the future where it'll say original screenplay by so and so, adapted screenplay written by, but ideas came from? Because in scientific journals now, what they do is that they ask who wrote which part of the journal and how much did they contribute and whose idea was this, and this. They actually are at a point where they want to give credit to each individual author, since so many papers are shared nowadays. I wonder if going in the future, whether that's going to be something that comes up, because we always hear stories like what you're saying, Russ, where it was written one way and then they decided to change that. In fact, we even see the scripts, Russ. We see these original scripts, like, for example, with Dune and how that was changed. I think it's very interesting, the idea of this. And in the end, who makes these decisions? Because, oh my gosh, they're profound decisions. I don't even know what to say. I have to wonder if they're
there
well
just needs
thought
to be
out
a bit of
decisions.
needs to be a bit of balance. Like people say, creators should have complete control, and I don't necessarily agree with that with every creator. All right. So if it was even with Zack Snyder, who I love, but when he's got complete creative control, you get things like Sucker Punch, which which I quite like, and I think I kind of saw the point of it when when it came about. A lot of people missed the point of it. So you do need sometimes a bit of studio interference to rein people in. And of course, at the other extreme of that, you've got Thor: Love and Thunder, where they thought, well, Taika's a genius. He's a really funny man. Let's just let him do whatever the hell he likes. So he creates a 5-hour cut of him and his mates horsing around, having a brilliant time, not really giving a shit about, oh, fucking, people will just eat it up. It's Thor. Don't worry about it. We can have some fun doing this. Do you want to be in Star Wars? Oh, I've been in Star Wars. It's kind of like the whole thing, like, said that he was coked out of his mind for the entire shoot, but perhaps he was.
And
Yeah.
Yash says, I mean, Dorne is Arabic and Hispanic themed. Why not have the Valerians have a little Caribbean influence? It's proper world building. I couldn't help but feel it was for me. Like I said, as soon as I saw those dreadlocks and those good-looking men, those good-looking Black men, I immediately thought about the Caribbean. So I couldn't step away from it, Yash. And that's why I kind of was expecting them to take the power, but we know that that's not exactly how it's going to turn out. But that was my first thought, is that. So who knows what will happen with it, but it's been done and it's there now. And it's kind of part of this. And he goes on to say Indira Varma and Pedro Pascal were great in Game of Thrones as the Martells, and I agree. And of course, we know her from the Karma Sutra, guys. Certainly a great film there. Now, Stubble says that he doesn't think that the Irish thing is known outside of the British Isles. I don't know.
Well, Ireland's pretty close to the British Isles, and we have a lot of Irish over here. And it was mentioned, actually, one of the guys that I listen to fairly frequently is a called Dave Cullen. He's an Irish guy, and he's very anti-woke and very traditional and all that kind of stuff. Think what it may be. He was really pissed off about it. It's kind of like, this is like going back to the 80s. Like, what the hell? We're thick again. We're bog trotters again. It's like, what the hell is this? This is not right. That's a really insulting term, by the way, to sort of say. But this is the term that he used, and that kind of the way that they're sort of portrayed as these sort of filthy idiots. It's not cool. So, we often get to hear about the American views on racial politics and all that kind of thing. And again, it's been tone deaf in its treatment of the Irish. And I've got some Irish friends, and they're all wonderful people, and they're nothing like the Harfoots.
Yeah. Well,
my grand was Irish, actually.
And well, Tom Jr. Jackson says at Positive Fandom, you and I dip our crumpets in the same cup of tea. That is absolutely true. And I think there are many of us who share that here, guys, especially in the brunch show. He says that he loved Chef. It was a great show. Absolutely. And Stubble McShave mentions that Lenny Henry's character was a mentor who didn't get to be a mentor. Yeah. And Latron Lathan says that scene in Andor, so we're going to switch to Andor before we for the show. And Skeen offering Andor a split of the credits and betraying the group reminded me of Rome season 1, when Lysandros offered Lucius Veronis a split of Pompey Magnus's fortunes. What did you think, Russ? Would you compare, since Latron has gracefully introduced us to this comparison, would you compare the machinations and storyline of Andor to what we've seen, let's say, in the historical reproduction of the TV series Rome? What do you think?
I haven't seen Rome for years, and I really must watch it again, if only for Polly Walker. But I love that. Ray Stevenson, he was in Accident Man 2, which is a top film. And please, guys, go out and buy Accident Man 2. Scott Adkins. It is absolutely, it's hilarious. It's an action. It's not going to say it's not even an action, but it's a comedy film with karate in it, and Adkins before the fights in this film are so good. But to Andor, no, I didn't make the Rome connection because it's been a while since I've seen it. But Andor is going from strength to strength. Like, okay, we know he's not going to die, but it's done such a good job of making you give a shit about the other characters that are in it, the Imperial traitor, the Imperial Jobsworths. Like, what I love about this show is it's showing the villains as not particularly evil or villainous. So the way that they talk about the natives of that planet, oh yeah, no, we just gave them choices because we knew that their tribal system doesn't really allow them, and they struggle with that, and then they realize we've given them nothing. That's a very Imperial attitude to have. It's a very Roman attitude to have, a very British attitude to have, like set the natives off and chuck them some coloured baubles, and then we'll just take all the stuff that we want from this country in the Empire's case, or this planet in the Imperial case. Um, I love how the Imperials are all portrayed in this, and then you've got the Imperial intelligence officer who's like a hard charger, and then you've got Cyril Khan who's coming apart. You know, with his mum. His mum was just genius, like this Jewish mama that he's got, and he has to go home, and she's all hard on him. But you know, don't worry, I'm going to phone Uncle Terry. You know, and, you know, because he's ashamed of you too, and it's all this kind of stuff. And fucking Cyril was just sat in his bedroom going, "Yeah, what has become of me?" The guy's having a breakdown, and
Yes.
to see somebody having a breakdown in Star Wars, you know, this is adult Star Wars, man.
But he kept the fob, Russ. He kept the fob of the picture of Andor, and he's
Yeah,
looking at it, and he's memorizing it, and he's got all the files. He stole that. He was supposed to turn that in, Russ. He was supposed to turn that back to the Empire, Russ. What else has he taken when he left the Empire,
I
Russ?
don't know, but you know, here's the thing: a lot of people have said that Cyril Khan is going to become a rebel, and I'm kind of hoping not. I'm kind of hoping he becomes like a ruthless Imperial commander. That he somehow he's with that. I forget the blonde lady's name, the Imperial Hard Charger. It's gone out of my
I can't remember her name, but I know who you're talking about. That very slick, blonde, imperial executive woman
yeah,
who wants to find out who took that. I don't know what it's called. That unit.
the star thingy, the navigation unit, basically. Yeah,
Yes.
I hope she crosses paths with him. I hope he's redeemed in evil. Like I hope he truly becomes an epic baddie, because I just think Andor has taken everything from
Mm-hmm.
this guy. Like
Mm-hmm.
he wanted to prove that he was the man, and because of this cunning rebel scum, he's lost everything. And I hope that there's a road back to evil for Cyril Khan. I kind of love
Mm-hmm.
this idea. You know, myself, if it was me, that's what I would do. I would think, no, the obvious choice is to make him question the Empire, question his motivations. Let's not do that. Let's make him even more determined to get this motherfucker who
Because a
ruined my
man
life.
like him would have a plan B. He's not down and out. He's just getting ready for the next phase of his life. And hello, happy traveling. Good morning to
Hey,
you.
happy traveling. Rewind,
Certain,
rewind.
certainly, I think that he has a plan B. This is not how he thought his life was going to go. But let's just be honest. He was too ambitious for that little outpost. He
Hmm.
was too ambitious for it. He defied a direct order. Come on. MB Dyson says, A29 says, I've been enjoying Rings. There's enough in it for me to keep watching, but I wouldn't buy 1 6 figures from it. Interesting.
That's great.
Um,
If you like it, you like it. I don't, and you know, I've been pretty clear on why I don't. But sure,
And Stubble says, I think there's hundreds of cooks in Rings of Power. The studio certainly had a lot to say about the end product. Retro Nerd Girl says, sometimes original writers don't want the credit
we
for
never
subpar
we never
work.
want to create subpar work. But you're quite right. A lot of writers do take a step back, especially if there's been in interference, as they would see it, with their original idea, and the idea is turned into something that it's not, or not what you as a writer originally intended. Then yeah, I can imagine that goes on. Certainly if it was me, that would be a step I would take. I think, well, this isn't kind of what I wrote. You know, you kind of wrote this, so you need to put your name on it as well, and probably in front of mine, because it's so different to what I originally did.
Now, guys, as we're wrapping up the channel, I do want to remind you that I do have my Ladies of the PGS show Monday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Post Geek Singularity, Robert Meyer Burnett's channel. So do join me for that. We do cover science fiction, fantasy, and horror, and sex, of course, nudity, and everything in between with guest Lorena Creole. We're going to be talking about Hellraiser. I haven't done the banner for it yet, but we certainly will be doing that. And Darth Plato mentions that he compared Andor to Rome the other day. So what if we know that Andor is going to die eventually? So what? You know, it's
Well, this is it. This is what we're saying, isn't it? You know, it's like we give a shit about everybody else in this show, and it's kind of like, when you've got the imperial, you kind of want them to succeed as well. Like this, you know, the imperial intelligence officer, she's brilliant, and I'm kind of I admit it, man. I'm Team Cyril. I want Cyril in that grey uniform on his Star Destroyer, having redeemed himself, you know, knowing that one day he's going to end up at the Battle of Hoth or wherever he's going to end up, and he's going to die too. But I just they've done a brilliant job of making you root for everybody in the show. You want that Imperial lady to do well. You want Skarsgård, Luke, and to succeed. You want Andor to succeed, but at the same time, you don't. That Imperial Jobsworth, the communication officer, it was brilliant. It's like, here's the thing. They're not all incompetent. He's like, something's not right. Come on, lads, we better go and investigate this, as you would do if you were in the army and something wasn't right. And he sends his men down there to investigate, and the heist starts to go wrong as we knew it had to. And yeah, we lost people. I didn't expect the young chap to die. I really thought he was going to be the sort of, you know, like a mainstay, and they killed him. Bang! I thought, yeah, genius. I did not expect that. I love this show. I love this show.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to die either. And I was talking about what might be in that book, and we don't really know what's in his book, but you know, she said it was his manifesto, but I don't think it's his manifesto. I think what's in there are all the things that he's learned as to why the Empire, well, maybe that is a manifesto, as to why the Empire should be stopped and how to stop them. Because remember, he had access. He was like, oh, you can't trace this, and it's a great navigator. You can fix it. He has a lot of information. And what's funny about this, and as I said this on Midnight Musings, is that it's a bit ironic. I thought the book of Boba Fett was going to be this book that Boba's father had given him that has all the information he needs to know to survive as a bounty hunter. And I thought we were going to go through that, and it was going to be some really crazy things, you know. Instead, we get the book in Andor. It's the book that might help Cassian Andor not become a rebel, but survive in this universe, because no one is really looking out for him. I mean, I know that he's with this group, but he's pretty much on his own, and he doesn't have that inside information. The problem with Andor is he doesn't have the information. That's the one thing that's holding him back, but now he has it. Maybe in this book that character gave him has a lot of things that are very, very important that he might have been holding off on and not telling anybody about, and now Andor has it. And so that is very interesting thing to think about. It is great to see stuff other than lightsabers and desert planets and stormtroopers. I agree with you, Stubble. It is great. And
I just wanted to touch on the book thing for a minute. I think that they've stated their theme, or one of their themes in this, is that it's imperial arrogance. That's their downfall, and they seem to have sort of picked up on this from the original Star Wars, and how, you know, it's a small thermal exhaust port, right? But, you know, it just never occurred to the Empire that anybody would have the balls to take on the Death Star, let alone find a weakness in it, and let alone, and you know, the fact that they're using all this old, out of date equipment that, you know, it's a bit Battlestar Galactica in a way, wasn't it? You know, and they wouldn't go networked and all that. But the fact that the Imperials would never even consider that they would use this old technology, and that's why they were so on the nose with the AK-47s that they were carrying. I know a lot of people sort of picked up on that, but the Stormtrooper rifles were basically based on Sten guns, which are old-fashioned British Army rifles with the magazine taken off. So they were Sten guns, essentially submachine guns. But yeah, I think that's the idea of this show. Is it's not that the Imperials are incompetent; it's that the Imperials are arrogant, and that's why they fail. And I like that, because they wouldn't have this gigantic empire with zillions of soldiers and Star Destroyers and Death Stars, and if they were idiots. But they've achieved this power, and they just can't imagine that anybody would dare challenge it. And even if they did, they will be crushed like a bug. But now they're starting to put fingers in the dike, kind of thing. You know, it's going to be a bit of this going on. It's so well done. It's so well written. It's so well acted. I don't know what's going to happen. And you know what? I care what's going to happen to all of them. Even Andor himself, a reprehensible piece of shit. He is a horrible, horrible man. His first act in that show, yeah, we have a bit of lip service to, oh, well, he's looking for a sister, and then he shoots somebody in the face. We know he owes people money. We know he's a Lothario that sleeps with other men's wives. He's a piece of shit. And he shoots the other guy in cold blood, as Richard Nurgle said. He shot first. He didn't even ask questions. No questions. He heard the guy's story, and then he just turned around and stunk on. Yeah, I shot him. He was an arsehole. He was going to betray us all. I love it. He's horrible. He's a horrible man, but we care. Like, he's an anti-hero. That's Snake Plissken, you know, the guy, Dirty Harry, Andor, anti-heroes done right. Top work, Tony Gilroy and Phil Gilroy. Top work. Well done. Thank you. Round of applause, boys. You were brilliant.
I agree. Of course, Andor is easy on the eyes, so there is that.
Hmm.
There's there is a female gaze, and for those of you who like men, he certainly is easy on the eye, and I can see him weeding his way into situations, getting by on his looks and charm. So there is that element about him that you can't kind of like take your eyes off of Diego Luna. At least that's how I look at him. So there is that. And thank you, Bye for to Hobbit. He says, thanks for the show. Love you. Well, I love you too. And all of you out there as well, Stavros, etc. Russ, where can people find you?
Well, here on most Sundays, and I have a website that's 1,000 years out of date, russellwhitfield.com. And if you want to drop me a line, please do at contact@russellwhitfield.com. But more importantly, where can we find you, RM?
Well, guys, you can always find me here on Positive Fandom, my channel, my YouTube channel. Guys, do like and subscribe and watch some of my videos so I can pump up those watch hours and finally get monetized. But you can also find me on the Post Geek Singularity Network for my show, Ladies of the PGS, on Monday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Monday. I also stream with Lorena Creole on her YouTube channel. We do have a show called Toxic Male Appreciation on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on her Twitch channel. And we also do watch parties. So do check me out there. You can also find me on the 1/6 Scale Man Network sometimes on Wednesdays and Thursdays on either Say What or Uncivilized Scoundrels. And finally, you can find me on Midnight Musings with Robert Meyer Burnett and Lael Rockwell on our show. It's usually on Friday nights or Saturday nights at midnight, so you can always find me there. And I'll always be here on Sunday Brunch on Sundays, guys. Thanks for those of you who turned up at 6:30 a.m. Bless your heart for turning up at 6:30 a.m. It was so early, but
Actually,
bless your heart for doing that.
last word from me before we say goodbye. I just wanted to say thanks to everybody in the chat. It's been really sort of vibrant today. There's been a lot of back and forth between yourself, myself, and the people in the chat. So really great comments. I know we don't agree on everything, and that's kind of the point, isn't it? It's good to have a discussion, and we can disagree on shit and still be mates at the end of it. I think that's so important, that you can have someone that just has an entirely opposite perspective to you, but it doesn't have to be a war. And I just wanted to thank everybody for addressing us, making their comments, making their views known and felt, and all that kind of stuff. It's really great. And I know that we are the ones sitting here in front of the cameras, but this show is very much everybody that turns up. I feel like, it's less of a show and more of a chin wag, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is. We certainly do love hearing everybody's comments. I try to get to all of them, but of course, I can't get to every one of them, but I try to at least have at least one comment from each person on the screen. Bloodsport 1 Ninja Scroll was great. You can watch the replay on Lorena's channel that we did with Damajani, and also Tobor. Hi, Tobor. I know you just woke up. Good to see you. Hope you have a great week. And of course, Tom Jr. Jackson. And of course, Return to Girl says hello and everybody have a great week. But Tom Jr. Jackson, who's the moderator, we are all goof people. He has his own channel. Check out his own channel here on YouTube for some great movie and television reviews. He also does books, audiobooks as well. So guys, certainly do check that out. Bloodsport 1, one of these days you and I are going to meet. Have no fear. There are many more cons to coming up. And Dark Plato says, is it Valete Amici?
Mm-hmm.
Valete Amici, Darth Plato. Guys,
Vale,
for all
man.
of you out there in the chat, anybody watching this on the replay, for everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to Sunday Brunch today. I do appreciate it. And for all of you, no matter where you are out there, always do remember to please be kind to everybody. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.